I want to discuss this now with my panel. Brian Lanza, he's a CNN political commentator and former communications director for President Trump's transition team. Mary Catherine Ham with us. She's a CNN political commentator and senior writer at The Federalist. And A. Scott Bolden, former D.C. Democratic Party chairman and chair of the National Bar Association, PAC. Okay, so... well, first off, I'm always a fan of seeing how the sausage is made over there in the Senate. You know, they're going to let us see how it all goes down, which is never pretty, I think, for a lot of people. But it certainly does satisfy some curiosity, I will say. So you heard someone there laying out the difficulty of threading this really two different needles. So what's the end game when you're talking about the Senate, where Democrats do have some say, and the House, where Democrats are outnumbered?
I'm not sure what the end game is here. They made a decision and they made a promise that they would have this debate. I think the debate is helpful to have people on record on what they actually think on immigration, because the Dreamer kids that's very popular, and doing something about that is very popular. There are other parts that Democrats do not like border security, that are also very popular. So it's going to be interesting to see everybody put their names on these things. I think there's a deal to be made here with the Dreamers Plus. It's more than the 800,000. It's the 1.8 million. And the added border security. I think you can make that deal in a functional environment, but do we have a functional enough environment to make that deal? I'm not sure.
I mean, Scott, what do you think? Like, if you're Chuck Schumer, what are you looking? You're looking at the popular provisions, and you're saying what?
And I've got the hard left on my side that is looking at Chuck Schumer, if you will. And so I can get back to border security, maybe even the wall. I certainly want to protect DACA, but I can't protect my flank if I'm Chuck Schumer if I agree with ending family migration and the family lottery, because no one has really said a race-neutral reason for why those two elements have to be in there, because you're talking about black people and brown people, and you really can't get around that part. That's going to be a problem for the Democrats, and it is Donald Trump who has lumped all this together. Here's an idea. Why don't you do DACA separately and then do the other four in some type of separate bill? Because moderate Republicans and Democrats want DACA done. That's a pretty simple idea and pretty simple for them to do.
Oh, it makes so much sense. It's totally not going to happen.
You also don't get to set the agenda because you didn't win.
Yeah, that's okay.
Elections matter.
If you're Chuck Schumer, you realize, hey, this last shutdown didn't really work for my folks, right? Okay, so, but to that point, Brian, because the wild card in all of this is President Trump, and he has these four pillars. You know, you have DACA, you have border security, you have chain migration or family reunification, depending on how the two sides say it, and then you have the visa lottery. Paul Ryan has said he doesn't want to pass something that the president is not going to agree to. Is the president willing to budge on these other two pillars?
I mean, the president's a negotiator, and when you're looking at what the fix is here, it's a broader fix than just DACA and the border wall. I mean, we're never going to have a long-term discussion about what to do with the 20 million illegals. We're having a discussion about 1.8 DACA kids, and I think now is the opportunity for Republicans. They had an election, they won on this issue. President Trump won on tough border security, he won on tough immigration, and they're ready to have the discussion now. It makes no sense from a leverage standpoint for them to give a little bit, like sort of come up with this small little deal here and then punt to the other stuff on the side, because it'll never happen. Because nothing ever really happens in D.C. unless there's real immense pressure that forces it to happen.
I want to talk about infrastructure, because that's the big thing today, Mary Catherine. The president's plan, it's to have about $200 billion in federal commitment, with the idea that then you have state and local governments, private public partnerships kick in a lot of money. It's really turning on its head how normally infrastructure is done. Normally that sort of 1-to-5 ratio is the other way. It's mostly federal dollars that go into that. Is that too much wishful thinking for Republicans to have any support for the president's bill, considering they just signed tax cuts? They just signed a spending bill that adds $300 billion over 2 years in extra spending.
But it's so much fun to spend everyone else's money.
Look, I want to go to the mall too, but
what we were
on
here
someone
for.
else's credit card.
This is this is the problem with dysfunctional Washington. Like, the swamp is winning here. That what it takes to make it move is to just pay everyone off, and that's what we're doing here.
Republicans will go. I mean, where are they going to be on this one?
Yeah, because like the constituency for getting mad about an infrastructure bill is like Rand Paul and me. That's it. So I'm mad. I'm like, give me my sequestration. I want it back. But no, like, there's not actually a constituency that is upset about infrastructure. Now, I do think we haven't done infrastructure real well in the past with that preponderance of federal dollars. So I'm open to doing it in some different ways. But these things are likely to be rife with all sorts of abuse.
What do you think? Democrats they don't like really this mix of the spending that he's proposing.
Where are the states going to get it from? Given what you ran down, the states don't have money for this.
Right now.
Absolutely, without a doubt. The states don't have the money. And the public-private partnerships, sometimes they work, but they're very inconsistent. I'm a former chair of the Chamber of Commerce, and we've done partnerships like that, but can it be effective, and can you get it done? The Democrats are going to be looking for jobs, job training, entrepreneurship training, and education so that we can get not only our voters, but the communities of color back to work so that there's a real increase in employment in those communities.
Brian, what do you think?
I think they're right. The swamp gets bigger and bigger every day. It's, these add-ons make a simple project cost more, and it makes it more complicated, but the process is what the process is. You're not going to be able to corral 60 senators, corral 218 congressmen to move something unless there's a little bit self-interest, and the self-interest is those communities, their constituents. So it is sort of how the process works, where you're buying off a lot of people, but those people's interests are the constituencies that they represent. That's how our system was created. As long as there's transparency and sunlight and everybody's aware about it, then we're fine. But you can't have Republicans say they care about debt and then blow it up the way they're blowing it up. Be consistent, be factual.
Both southern red states, though, they got a lot of unemployed folks who are big entitlement. This bill itself, if it gets them back to work, could work for Republicans and Democrats.
We'll see. Scott Bolden, Mary Catherine Ham, thank you so much. Brian Lanza, thank you guys.